Good evening. Today is the 8th of June 2022. Welcome to Prime Time News here on TV1 for the News First team where the people come first. I'm Senita Senanayaka. Before we take a look at the stories that we've got for you this evening, let's take a look at the headlines.
Basil to give up parliamentary seat, partly to sit independently in parliament. Don't amend electricity laws to allow Adani projects. Engineers warn of trade union action.
අපි අද රාත්‍රී 12ට සියලුම සේවකයෝ වැඩ කරන තැන් වලින් එළියට බහිනවා. සියලුම විදුලි බලාගාර නවතිනවා.
No basis to accusations. Electricity laws will be changed tomorrow, Minister Kanchana says.
තමන්ගේ වැටුප් ගෙවා ගැනීම වෙනුවෙන් ජනතාව මත ඒ ගාස්තු සංශෝධනය කළ දාන්න හදනවා නම් ඒකට කිසිසේත්ම මම ඇමතිවරයා හැටියට කටයුතු කරන්න ඉඩ දෙන්නේ නැහැ කියන එක අපි කියනවා.
India's support needed to import fuel. Do not cause blackouts. A warning from the Prime Minister. Who destroyed the economy? Committee on Public Finance questions. 2,600 activists arrested. Activists demand to halt suppression. Court orders to arrest Johnston Fernando.
On to those stories in detail. A senior member of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna told News First that Basil Rajapaksa is planning to resign from the national list tomorrow. According to the official, Rajapaksa will announce his decision tomorrow and he expects to work for the party after giving up his parliamentary seat. Basil Rajapaksa has called for a special media briefing at 11 a.m. tomorrow.
What is happening in the political spectrum? Jayantha Katagode entered parliament through the national list of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. However, after the 20th amendment was passed, he gave up his seat for Basil Rajapaksa to enter parliament. Basil Rajapaksa then became finance minister. Months later, the cabinet of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna government was forced to resign amidst massive public outrage over the economic crisis. Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned as prime minister, making way for Ranil Wickremesinghe to take up the post. A new cabinet comprising independent and opposition parliamentarians was then appointed. Now, Basil Rajapaksa is preparing to give up his parliamentary seat. Samigijana Balawege parliamentarian Patali Champiko Ranabaka has said he will sit independently. Basil Rajapaksa's entry to parliament stirred massive controversy among political circles. He is the national organizer and the founder of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, who will be appointed to this seat.
Samagi Janabalawege parliamentarian Partly Champika Ranavaka has said he will sit independently in parliament.
I informed the Samagi Janabalawege leader and opposition leader Sajith Premadasa in writing that we joined his political alliance on the 18th of March 2020 under an agreement. I said I would be sitting independently as the agreement allows it. I didn't make this decision because of a personal grudge against anyone, but instead because of my policies and my conscience. I don't intend to hold any ministerial position in this government. This government must be changed. This government must be an all-party government or an interim government. But the current one does not have those features. I won't betray the political will of the people who voted for me.
This parliament no longer consists of a government side and an opposition side. This parliament now consists of independent MPs. New fashion. Each one stands up and says, I'm independent. Our system is that of government and opposition. This parliament has failed if it says everybody sitting here is an independent MP. The president has lost his mandate. President is a wrongdoer who caused this huge economic calamity, so he must move or he must be removed. The parliament also has lost its mandate. 2/3 you had. What do you have now? Groups within the government. So I say to those out there who think that this is merely playing politics, no, it is not. Until you set this right, you are not going to even begin to address the economic issue. Every institution has told this country, there must be political stability. How do you have political stability with this parliament of independent MPs? You have no stability at all. We must understand that we are part of a problem now. A highly watered down version of bringing back you call it the 21st, it's not the 21st. 21st is what Honorable Ranjit Madhuma Bandara has presented to Parliament. That is a substantial one. Then at least give support for that to be passed. If you are serious about your promises.
Thank you.
If you are unable to finalize a draft, if you have no unanimity in the cabinet to do that. So cabinet has failed. We are to move from this. This relief budget will be most welcome, but we'll have to look at it to see what there is in it. We are waiting to see what your draft amendment to the constitution is. We will have to wait for it. But longer we wait,
Honourable Member,
the more serious the economic crisis is.
We listened to the speech of parliamentarian Champika Ranawaka. He has understood the gravity of the problem we are facing. Everyone in this parliament doesn't want to obtain ministerial positions. We must use parliament as an institution to come out of this crisis. We can then achieve the other aspirations. I spoke to the IMF's managing director yesterday. I said that we need money immediately. I said that we are implementing the required economic programs and we can obtain support from foreign countries only if the IMF agrees to support us. She said she will respond to it favorably. When we sought help from USAID and the World Bank, they called for economic and political reforms. The Prime Minister is discussing about economic reforms. What steps have been taken towards political reforms?
No, I am asking about political reforms. That I'll ask them and let you know, but I have not discussed that. I am just focusing not on the full lot, but World Bank and all can give us some bridging finance before the others come, and they want agreement with the IMF. Political reforms, I will ask them.
Samantha Power's communique and also the US Ambassador's communique
I know that.
Mention about political reforms.
So I'll come back to you on that.
Thank you.
Farmers don't have fertilizer. There is no diesel, gas or food. Cost of food has gone up. The country is in a dangerous position. The Sri Lankan Freedom Party will therefore support attempts to form an all-party government.
Trade unions in the electricity sector say they will go on a strike from midnight as talks with the minister have failed. They say they oppose the amendments to the Electricity Act as it will abolish the competitive bidding process.
Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara met with trade unions from the electricity sector in Parliament today.
We had a cordial discussion with Minister Kanchana. Mahindananda Alutgamge was also present. We repeatedly insisted that this system of competitive bidding should not be abolished. He didn't like that. He said the bill will be passed under any circumstances. We have no other alternative.
In a letter to the CEB General Manager, the CEB Engineers Union said the amendments to the Electricity Act violate the policy of generating electricity at the lowest possible cost. They recalled that the LNG power project was vested with a US company named Newsfirst.lk Energy without following a tender process. The engineers said officials who were part of this deal have signed agreements with India's Adani Group for a 500 megawatt wind power project. They claimed that there are attempts to buy electricity from the project run by Adani Group at a higher cost than the market value. The CEB Engineers Union claimed that power is to be purchased at $7.55 and that the payments are to be made in dollars. They added that agreements like this jeopardize the country's power sector as local investors are prepared to sell power at a lower cost.
The Thambapavani wind power plant can generate 100 megawatts. The production cost for each unit is 4 cents, but they are trying to buy electricity for 7.55 cents. We ask the government to nominate someone to take over this project. We are ready to do it, but if we don't receive a response by midnight, we will gradually suspend power supply to the country.
We won't participate in the strike. This group played a main role in creating this crisis. They have to bear responsibility to some extent. Since 2017, we haven't been able to boost renewable energy sources. As an alternative, we have to go for diesel power plants or for emergency power purchases. The CEB is facing massive losses due to this. The people have to face the brunt of this loss. Therefore, minor changes have to be made to this act. If there is a good agreement that has come in by following a tender process, why are they trying to do it discreetly? These are the deals that some have struck with their allies to pocket a commission through power purchases even after they leave office. As a trade union at the CEB, we will definitely prevent this from happening.
The
Adani Group is linked to many Indian politicians. We have a doubt as to whether ministers who are trying to create an issue over the amendment to the Electricity Act have fallen prey to the Adani Group.
By going away from the competitive bidding process, they are trying to award tenders for unsolicited proposals. We feel this will block attempts to generate electricity at a low cost to the country.
The competitive process won't be wiped out through this amendment. The Ceylon Electricity Board will be able to decide on the cost of a unit of electricity. Last week, the CEB requested me to permit the increase of electricity tariffs by 300%. It costs 756 billion rupees to generate electricity. Our revenue is only 250 billion rupees. There is a shortage of about 500 billion rupees. But most of this money is spent on buying diesel for thermal power plants and the payment of salaries. The salaries of these officials are increased by 25% every 3 years. Should they cover this expense by increasing electricity tariffs? No. I won't make a proposal like that to the cabinet. If they are trying to increase electricity tariffs to cover the expense of increasing their salaries, as the minister, I won't permit that. Trade unions have been reaching out to me from this morning. I tabled in Parliament a document highlighting which group caused the island-wide blackout on November 29th and December 3rd. This group is manipulating one trade union to take certain action. I will table this bill tomorrow. You can oppose this if you want to. If you oppose this, then we will have to deal with thermal and coal power plants even in the future. We need about $800 million just to import coal next year. All of you are speaking about foreign exchange outflows. We are spending $100 million every month to import diesel. That is $1.2 billion every year. If we go for wind power plants, there will be an outflow of $200 billion. Isn't this better than spending $1.2 million? Through investments, we will not only be able to meet the total demand, we can also have a surplus. I believe we must merge with India's electricity grid. Only then can we export electricity. Don't block these efforts. If you have suggestions, you can table them during the committee stages. We are ready to listen to you, but don't push the country into a bad position by joining a few CEB officials who are part of a mafia. They have said that they will create a blackout in the country. It's a terrorist group which says this. Access to electricity is a fundamental right of the people. If we don't make the right decision, then the people will set fire to our homes again.
We agree
completely with moving towards renewable energy. We are not ready to allow the electricity sector to fall into the hands of the diesel mafia. Wind power is an asset to our country. Local investors who invest in wind power will make payments in rupees, but they are trying to give away the wind power sector to foreign entities. Then we will have to pay them twice the amount in dollars to buy electricity.
We don't have diesel or coal. No country gives us money. They don't give us money to buy fertilizer, medicine or food. Only India gives us credit lines. We are running out of cash. We will discuss with India again. We will speak to them and ask them to provide money immediately. We need electricity and fuel. We need money to run our factories. Therefore, if we go ahead and cause a blackout, don't ask me to approach India for assistance. If we don't have an emergency, why should they support us? They always say, help yourself, then we will help you. Don't create a blackout. We can't bear responsibility after that.
Blackout කරන්න එපා. Blackout කරොත් මීට පස්සේ අපිට වග කියන්න බෑ.
This is the sixth day. Every day we suffer to earn 500 rupees to buy kerosene oil. The DIGs come and say that they will bring oil today, if not tomorrow. And if it is not tomorrow, then they ask us to come again the day after tomorrow. Is that right? Aren't we all humans? If they can bring petrol and diesel, why can't they bring kerosene oil?
Most people in a queue opposite a filling station in Kotte today were residents of housing complexes in Colombo. For many days they were in queue opposite the filling station with the hope of purchasing kerosene, but for 6 days they were only given tokens. When the distress was unbearable, they obstructed the Mirihana Pitikote road to express their displeasure. The situation was only eased once police intervened. Fishermen in Ambalangoda don't set out to sea. They don't have food to eat. Staying in queues to purchase kerosene hasn't brought them much luck either. Priority should be given to fishermen. We only receive 50 litres of fuel. With that 50 litres, I don't think even the Minister of Fisheries knows how many nautical miles we can travel. We have to stay in the middle of the sea because we don't have fuel to return. Long queues for diesel and petrol have re-emerged in many parts of the island once again. 2 filling stations in Kurunagala received stocks of petrol this evening.
අපි දැන් මේ බේකරි නිෂ්පාදනය තමයි තෙල් ගෙනියන්නේ. ටයික් අවන් එකයි වැඩ. ජෙනි වලට අවන් වලට තෙල් 150 කිලෝ දවසකට යනවා. ඒ ප්‍රමාණය හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ.
A filling station in Dambulla had run out of fuel to the dismay of many farmers. We are farmers. Our crops will have to be reaped soon. We haven't watered them in 25 days. If harvests aren't reaped in a timely manner, production will fail, leaving us with little or nothing to consume. This is similar to most houses without a functioning cylinder of LP gas. Queues for gas were seen in several areas in Colombo as well. Our cameras captured scenes that unfolded opposite a gas dealership in Demadagoda. If there is neither gas nor kerosene to purchase, what can one do? One family decided to use their bed frame to light a fire.
Some Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna parliamentarians visited the Human Rights Commission today. They called for an investigation into their destruction of their homes during the unrest that broke out on the 9th of May.
Anyone has the right to bear a political stance. If a person's property is being damaged for having a political stance, and if homes are set fire as the police keep watching, that is unacceptable. We met the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission and the commissioner as well. They were shocked by this incident. They discussed the need to take legal action over this. We condemn the incident on the 9th of May. We won't bear responsibility over any incident of violence.
The human-elephant conflict continues to affect people in rural Sri Lanka, exposing their lives to risk. A woman in Nochiagama was the latest casualty in this conflict.
A mother of 4 was killed in a wild elephant attack in Nochiagama this morning. The tragedy had occurred as she was returning home after charging her electric lamp. Her death sparked anger among villagers who surrounded the wildlife officer in the area.
හරි ඔබතුමාලාට දුක තේරෙනවා දුක නොදැනෙන කොටසක් ඉන්නව නේද මෙතන? දුක තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. පාර්කෝන මහත්තයා එනවා. ඔයාලට යා කටින්චුවට වැඩක් නැහැ. යා ලිඛිතව දැන් අවසරයක් දෙන්න එනවාද? කට්ටිය කෑ ගන්න එපා. ඉස්සරහට එතුමා ආවමතේ එතන කලබල ඇති ගන්න බෑ. එහෙම කලබල ඇති කරන අයට වෙනම දඩුව පස්සේ එනවා.
අපිට
The warden of the Vilpattu National Park arrived at the location with special task force officers. The villagers dispersed after they were given a written assurance that action will be taken.
There are claims of corruption emerging amidst many issues faced by the country. Some revelations involving the Urban Development Authority emerged during a sitting of the Committee on Public Enterprises yesterday.
A 2-acre, 1 rood and 21.4 perch in DR Vijayawardhan Mawatha has been leased to a company for 50 years for a mixed development project. This was done with an upfront payment of 2.7 billion rupees after obtaining cabinet approval. In a letter dated 25th May 2016, the legal director of the Urban Development Authority had informed the Lands Division that the land was being used by a private company for illegal activities.
බදුකරු විසින් සංවර්ධනය නොකිරීම නිසා 2017 වර්ෂයේ නැවත තක්සේරු කළා මිලියන 577ක් ගෙවලා තිබ්බා. ඊට පස්සේ නැවත තක්සේරු කළා අර මිලියන 557ට 12ක ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එකකුත් එක්ක එයාට ආපහු ගෙවලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි එයා ඒ කාල සීමාව තුල මේ පුජ්‍යලයා මේක දිගටම කාපාක හැටියට පරිහරණය කරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. දැන් ඉඩම කාගේද? ඉඩම දැන් ඒ පුජ්‍යලයා විසින් තවත් පාටියකට දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒක අපි කැන්සල් කරන්න බෑ දෙමළ. මෙහෙමයි ක්ලෝස් එකක් අනුව අපිට කැන්සල් කරන්න බෑ. ඒ දැන් 24 වෙනකම් බෑ. දැන් 24 කියන්නේ දැන් 2017 පෙබරවාරි 16 වසර 50කට බදු කිවිසුමකට ගිහින් තියෙනවා.
අදාළ ඩෙවලොප්මන්ට් එක සිද්ධ වුණේ නැත්නම් ඒ මාස 72 කාලය අවසානයේදී UD එකට පුළුවන් මේ කිවිසුම කැන්සල් කරන්න. කැන්සල් කරන අවස්ථාවේදී අපිට ගෙවන ලද එකී මුදල් සියල්ලම අපි නැවත එම පුද්ගලයාට ගෙවිය යුතු වෙනවා. UD කවුද හැමදේම කැපෙන්නේ?
මේක ඇත්තටම මහා දවල් රොබරි එකක් නෙමෙයි.
මම හිතන්නේ දැනට මේ ඊටම තියෙන ජපාන් ඉන්වෙස්ටර් කෙනෙක් අතේ දැනට තියෙන්නේ. ලේක්ලෙෂර් කියලා කියන්නේ ජපනිස් කම්පැනි.
ඒගොල්ලන්ට තමයි එකට දීලා තියෙන්නේ.
මුලින් ගත්ත එක නෙමෙයි.
නෑ දැන් එතුමා නෙගෝෂিয়েට් කරන්නේ මේක අපිට කරන්න බැරි වුණා සංවාදනය කරන්න ඕනේ දැන් අපිට අවස්ථාවක් දෙන්න.
ඒක නිසා ලේක්ලෙෂර් එකට දෙනවා.
ඉතින් ඒ දෙන්නේ වෙන කම්පැනි. ඒකට ඒකට දෙන්න ඕන කම නැහැ නේ. මොකද ඒ ඉන්න පුද්ගලයා නෙමෙයිනේ ඉල්ලන්නේ.
මේ ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක අනුව මේ ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක ලියලා තියෙන්නේ තර ෂැන් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක ගහපු එක්කෙනාමයි. ඒ නීති අධ්‍යක්ෂකවරියමයි. ඒතර ඒ ලේක්ලෙෂර්ත් එක ගහපු ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක අනුව අපිට කිසිම අයිතියක් නැහැ. අය මේ ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකෙන් පිටට යන්න.
බ්‍රයිබරි එකට මේක බාර දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒගොල්ලන්ට මේක හොයන්න පුළුවන්. අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවට මේක දෙන්න පුළුවන්. මේ ආයතනයේ ඉඳපු කවුරු හරි වංචනික ලෙස මේ වාගේ වැඩකට සම්බන්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා නම් ඒකට විරුද්ධව නෛතික ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්න.
Former central bank governors and finance secretaries were summoned to the Parliamentary Committee on Public Finance today. This was part of an investigation into Sri Lanka's economic crisis. Former President Secretary Dr. P.V. Jayasundara and former central bank governor Ajit Niwad Cabral were summoned to the Committee on Public Finance.
What we observed is that there were shortcomings in the coordination between the government and the finance ministry and the other state institutions since 2019 when implementing certain policy decisions such as slashing taxes. We hope to discuss the damages caused to the economy due to the decision to peg the exchange rate to the US dollar and the failure to take decisions to prevent the depreciation of the rupee.
China says it is ready to work with relevant countries and international financial institutions to continue to play a positive role in supporting Sri Lanka's response to current difficulties.
Responding to questions at the Foreign Ministry's regular press conference today, its spokesperson Zhao Lijian said they hope Sri Lanka will work actively with China in a similar spirit and work out a feasible solution expeditiously. He said, and I quote, "Shortly after the Sri Lankan government announced to suspend international debt payments, Chinese financial institutions reached out to the Sri Lankan side and expressed their readiness to find a proper way to handle the matured debts related to China and help Sri Lanka to overcome up the current difficulties, unquote. He added that China believes Sri Lanka will boost its own efforts, protect the stability and credibility of the investment and financing partners, and ensure the stability and credibility of Sri Lanka's investment and financing environment. Responding to another question, the ministry spokesperson said that China is ready to work with India and the rest of the international community to help Sri Lanka and other developing countries experiencing difficulty to pull through the hardship as early as possible. He added that the Chinese government will do its utmost and make full use of the channels available to deliver help to the Sri Lankan society.
Meanwhile, the World Bank says that Sri Lanka's economy is expected to contract by 7.8% in the year 2022.
In a report, the World Bank says a balance of payments crisis and the halting of the repayment of external debt in Sri Lanka have significantly deteriorated growth prospects. The World Bank warns that the contraction can be greater if actions by the authorities to restore macroeconomic stability and in debt restructuring are delayed. The World Bank warns that countries around the world are facing recession as the Ukrainian war hits economies already rocked by the COVID pandemic. Its president David Malpass says the risk of high inflation and low growth, so-called stagflation, is also higher. How will Sri Lanka, which is already in the midst of a looming economic crisis, be impacted by a global recession?
It will be a double whammy for Sri Lanka because we are already going through a very difficult time period, and our projections on economic contraction are slightly higher this year and next year. The current economic context is all the economies are connected with each other. When one country is going through a bad period, of course it affects to the entire world. The best example is the current situation in Russia and Ukraine. The economies which are already going through a difficult period would be very badly affected. The only solution for Sri Lanka is quickly do the reforms. The problem at the moment, as we all see, is there's no proper plan still being put forward. What are the reforms that we are going to do? What are the reforms that we would be implementing in the short term, medium term and long run? We are just, I think, trying to do the bridge financing, but even to do the bridge financing, we should have a proper economic outlook for investors, for donors, for people to know what would be the outlook in the coming future. We need to move very fast because every hour, every minute, every day that we delay, it will add a lot of pressure on people. Reforms has to be on one hand reducing our expenditure and also on the other hand to an extent increasing our productivity, efficiency. All those reforms has to take place if we were to overcome this crisis, especially on this global context.
The World Bank says for Sri Lanka, growth prospects are highly uncertain and subject to significant downside risks.
News First with the people.
We'll go in for a short commercial break. Stay with News First.
Why did Sri Lanka lose to Australia?
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ
නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ
අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ
හදිස්සියට බාල පයිප් එකක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටක්
මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටක් හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප් එකක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජලනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රංගම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
Welcome back to the news. The Colombo Fort Magistrate ordered to arrest former Minister Johnston Fernando. He is a suspect in the case over the attacks on peaceful protests on the 9th of May.
Fort Magistrate Tilina Gamage issued an order to arrest Minister Johnston Fernando after considering a request by Additional Solicitor General Ayesha Jinasena. The Additional Solicitor General requested court to issue an open warrant as Johnston Fernando, who is a suspect over the attacks on the peaceful protests on the 9th of May, is not at his residence. Johnston Fernando filed a writ petition at the appeal court seeking an order to prevent his arrest. The Fort Magistrate today ordered the release of 13 suspects, including parliamentarians Milan Jayatilaka and Vasanta Handapangoda and Councillor Mahinda Kahandagama. They were released on 2 surety bails of 1 million rupees each. Other suspects, including parliamentarian Sanath Nishanta, Dan Priyasad and Samanlal Fernando, have been remanded further until the 15th of this month. The court has ordered to further remand the suspects as there is evidence of their direct involvement to the unrest.
Leaflets were distributed opposite the Fort railway station demanding to oust the current government.
Tomorrow marks 1 month since the Rajapaksa junta attacked Gotagogama. They have turned a blind eye towards enforcing the law against the horrific attacks by thugs on our brothers and sisters. More than 2,600 people have been arrested for participating in peaceful protests. The Rajapaksa Ranil Wickramasinghe administration cannot suppress us and stop the people's struggle. You might recall that a cat belonging to the Rajapaksa family went missing a few weeks ago. The police were able to find the cat in less than 10 hours. They came together to find a cat, but the law has not been enforced on Mahinda's supporters who were drunk and attacked the Gotagogama protest site on the 9th of May. Basil, Gotabe and the rest of their gang created a conspiracy and brought Ranil. Some people might assume that Ranil can uplift the country. It's been a month. Now they realize what happened. Ranil issued special statements daily and calls on the people to start cultivating, as there is a dangerous period ahead and that people will run out of food in 2 to 3 weeks. We will begin a new struggle from tomorrow.
P.S. Anuranga, a victim of attack on peaceful protests on the 9th of May, lodged a complaint at the Human Rights Commission today.
The IGP had complete authority to prevent this attack, but not a single legal action has been taken until now. More than 30 people were hospitalized, but still the law has not been enacted. Most of us who represented the peaceful struggle have been summoned to the authorities, but those who attacked us have not been. They continue to roam free. Arabi Vasanta, a henchman of the government, used a makeshift baton to attack Anuranga. That blow could have been fatal, however his life was spared. People like Johnston Fernando have still not been arrested, even though it will be a month tomorrow since the attack took place. Mahinda Rajapaksa has not been brought before the law either. Similarly, there are many others roaming free.
The Balasubullam Magistrates Court granted bail to the son and the daughter-in-law of parliamentarian Dilip Vedarachi.
Ravind Vedarachi and his spouse were remanded over an altercation with the police at the Southern Expressway recently. They were charged with obstructing duties of police officers during the scuffle as they tried to transport a fridge on the expressway.
Owners and managers of tourist hotels held a silent protest in Kandy today.
The protesters said the drop in tourist arrivals in the last 3 years has affected their livelihoods. They requested the government to introduce a proper plan to attract foreign tourists.
The main reason for organizing this, and we're asking the government to get involved and to speak to the embassies and other people who are involved in tourism, and so that they can lift the travel bans, so that because when the travel bans on, the insurances etc. It's high to pay, so it's difficult for tourists to travel. And as we always said, up to now there has been no incident to any tourists or harm brought to any tourists that have been who are in this country in few numbers. So we are only appealing to the government to help us at least to get the travel bans lifted.
In sports news, Sri Lankan batsman Charit Asalanka says his team lost its composure midway through the innings against Australia. Sri Lanka had lost to Australia in the first T20 international at the Ranasinghe Premadasa Stadium in Colombo.
I felt we panicked after reaching 100 for the loss of 1 wicket. We feel that was the reason for the collapse. The pitch wasn't as good as we expected. The wicket slowed down during the game. A team that scored 112 overs goes down to score 70 or 80 in the remaining 8 overs. I feel our bowling unit is strong. We could have put up a strong fight if we had gotten more than 150 on the board.
And that brings us to an end of this edition of Primetime News here on TV1. For more details on these stories, you can log on to our website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First team, where the people come first, I've been Sanitha Senanayaka. Take care and stay safe.